Welcome to episode 5 of the Creative Train podcast. This train is chugging right along. Today, we're going to talk about something that everybody who's done anything new in their life has faced. And it's your expectations of yourself. This can apply to, teaching as well, because not all great doers are great teachers. And that's what we're going to talk about today is flow and fluidity. So flow and fluidity, why does it seem almost impossible? When we set about doing any new thing, whether it's a sport or craft or learning to cook or buying your first instrument to finally sign up for lessons and learn how to play, you have to be willing to suck at it for a while. Well, by suck, I mean you have to allow your anticipation of your results to be tempered by the fact that those around you who already do this thing or have been learning for some time have already started paying their dues. And you have to learn to relax your inner critic. Everybody thinks they suck at first. But the biggest difference I've seen in beginners is between children and adults. Like kids are used to having to learn things. It's part of their daily routine. And their minds are still very plastic enough that it's not a strain for them to snap into learn mode. And they can often do this with great joy and great fervor. Whether they're learning an instrument or a sport or learning to write computer code, they're often very hungry for new information. And most of the time, they put that new information to immediate use. There are most definitely those kids that are not exactly engaged in their lessons. They may feel like they're being forced to be there, or they're distracted by the thoughts of getting back home to their video games, etc. Their progress is typically very slow, almost glacial in nature. And their time or tenure in lessons is usually less than 1 year. With adult beginners, I've found they need to be reminded of this when they encounter struggles in their creative journey. During their time with me in studio, with their lessons, I can always tell when their vibe changes, even if they don't say anything. I recognize the body language, the facial expressions, and even how they breathe. And I always let it get to a certain point, then I stop them and give them the pep talk about learning as an adult. As an adult beginning anything new, you're coming at the situation already pretty well established in your career. Whether you're a carpenter, a chef, or a mechanic, doctor, bartender, whatever, you've paid your dues, you know your gig inside and out. You're already, as I like to say, doing the thing. And the rest of your daily routines with your family or social obligations all seem to just fall into place around your established, what shall we call it, your job. There is pride in those accomplishments, and it becomes part of how we define who and what we are. And we become very comfortable with all of it. But then might come the desire for a creative challenge to finally learn that instrument, or learn how to draw that stuff, or do pottery, or martial arts. And the foundations you've built all of your other routines upon are no longer there. You're starting from scratch, and it's usually not a very cozy place to be. It's really hard to prioritize practice because it makes you feel awkward. It's hard to find a place in your routine to dedicate to practice because everything else has fit so snugly into place that the notion of freeing up your time and space makes you feel like you're committing a disservice elsewhere in your life, right? And then when they hear this, they always have their aha moment when they hear it. I mean, it's not terribly profound, but somehow they need to be told, even if they've already thought about it and know it to be true. And I always kind of jokingly tell them, I say, you have my permission to be slow. You have my permission to take a pass on a day or two of practice. You have my permission to not land an awkward chord or remember a line of lyrics. And I think by saying these things out loud, it resonates with people a little bit differently. And it doesn't seem like some internal echo of self-doubt or guilt, but rather an admission that there is indeed a process involved, and they must acknowledge their place within the process. So this episode came about based on a conversation I was having with an adult student whose lesson is right after his 7-year-old son's lesson. And yes, there are marked differences in their progress thus far, but he was getting really frustrated that he couldn't change his chords in time, despite the fact that they were perfectly voiced when he got there. So I told him, think of it like this. You know how to spell those chords, and you can print them now, sometimes slowly and sometimes with greater ease. At this point of your guitar playing journey, you're copying words off the blackboard, like you did when you were in kindergarten, grade 1, whatever. You can do that, but you haven't yet learned or practiced enough words to write them down as quickly as you think them. But right now, tonight, you're doing awesome. The flow you feel you are missing is really only a timing issue. Letting your strumming hand and fretting hand synchronize and to allow the reconciliation of the differences to be worked out over time with practice. Then, with simple patterns, you'll start to feel that flow. And then we're going to step up the game with different strumming and fretting techniques. And this will be like that moment in school when you started to learn cursive writing. Everything you have been good at so far is being tossed out the window, for what you're being told is an evolution of your technique. It's the big kid way of doing things. If you've ever watched a true master at work, they make it look easy. No stress, just a zen-like flow of movements and techniques, and maybe you even see them doing things you don't quite at first understand the point of, but all result in a fantastic creation and display that moves and inspires us as we witness them. Whether it's in music, dance, cooking, carpentry, or sports, most of us have had that humbling moment when we see a true master at work and being struck with their struggle-free actions and near-perfect results. And it's often this kind of moment which inspires us to start our new creative venture. So back to the original point of why the flow and fluidity seem almost impossible. It's needing to balance your expectations and eagerness that you got from that point of wanting to do this new thing, balancing that with the fact you haven't quite done the thing enough yet, but you're doing it now, and you're going to get there if you keep it up. So there's your pep talk. Now go get to work. Thanks for listening all the way to the end, folks. I really do appreciate that. This, as episode 5, was actually one of the ones I wanted to do first as a podcast, but I felt there was other things I wanted to handle and discuss first. And although this episode dealt mostly around learning music, I think that anybody who's done anything new can relate to something in there somewhere. It's something that I deal with every day. If I have 12 music students, I might have to explain the same thing 12 different ways, but it's just what I do.